Hello, I am Penny Owens, and I'm honored to interview Miss Jane Ogle, FNIGP, today. Jane, welcome to our radio NIGP show, and we would love to ask you some questions about your wonderful history with NIGP and your career. By way of introduction, would you kind of talk to us about where you worked and what your title was and how you were affiliated with NIGP during your career?
Sure. I worked for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee for 40 years, and I retired as the director of purchasing. Now, my affiliation with NIGP started in 1979 when my city manager asked me if I would develop a purchasing department for the city. Well, I quickly realized that NIGP held the key to the education and the contacts that I was going to need to make this request become a reality. But throughout my career, I publicized and promoted public procurement because it was near and dear to my heart. And I did that on a local, regional, state and national level, and I was very fortunate to become associated with NIGP and honored to serve on many committees and on their board of directors.
So Jane, I knew you were very well affiliated with NIGP. So tell me, I believe you were also a charter member of both the East Tennessee Purchasing Association and the Tennessee Association for Public Purchasing. How did that come to be, and how did you end up helping to charter both of those chapters?
Well, it was interesting, and in 1981, NIGP had their national conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was there that I was introduced to the value of chapter relations and what it could do to help people become acquainted with one another and network. And so for the next several years, my counterpart, Frank Moore, with the city of Kingsport, Tennessee, and I started contacting purchasing agents in our area and region, and just to see if we could get their support in starting a chapter in East Tennessee. And so in 1987, we were granted a charter to start East Tennessee Purchasing Association, and we had 20 members. So we then broadened our outreach to Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee. And then in 1989, we were fortunate to charter the Tennessee Association of Public Purchasing as the state chapter. And I will say I'm extremely proud and happy to know that both of those chapters are healthy, hearty, and doing well in promoting education and networking opportunities for the purchasing public.
Both of those chapters have been a great resource here in Tennessee. And it's really kind of neat that, East Tennessee has their niche, but then TAP also has a different niche. And so it's really great how they work together. So what do you believe was probably the biggest change in procurement that occurred from the time you started to the time that you retired from the profession?
Well, it was automation, pure and simple. When I was first hired to work for the city of Johnson City, I was in the city manager's office. Now, the city manager, by charter of our city, is the purchasing agent. And so, therefore, one of my jobs was to type purchase orders. Now, this purchase order was a 5-part form with each page layered with a sheet of carbon paper. So every purchase order that I typed in big letters, it said confirmation, because we needed to pay invoices. So every invoice needed a purchase order number in order for it to be paid. Now, we were paying after we had the goods delivered and after the services were rendered. So fast forward to 2005 when I retired, and everything was automated. Now then, the purchase orders were sent electronically prior to the goods being received and prior to the services being rendered. So for me, that's the greatest change that's been made.
Did it take a lot more staff with less automation, or did you ever see that staff number really decrease because of automation?
When we developed the purchasing department, we had a staff of 3, and even today, that's the size of the staff. So, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's kind of interesting since, we've always heard that automation is supposed to help us reduce staff and there wouldn't be as many of us needed. So,
but I think that the reason that the staff is needed is because the volume of business that we do now has quadrupled. So, yeah.
And probably gotten more complex too, I would imagine. True. As well. So what would probably be the most important lesson you learned during your career that you would want to pass along to other and current public procurement professionals?
I have to say that the value of networking, because sometimes you can feel like that you're the only person that has ever seen this type of solicitation, when in reality, you don't have to reinvent that wheel. You can pick up the phone or shoot an email to someone, and I guarantee you that someone will respond and you'll have some assistance in getting the job that you've been charged with done. A couple of things. Number one, I think certification is extremely important to procurement professionals and clerks in the procurement department, because not only it's difficult, it's a lot of studying and testing, but when you get certified, there is a personal satisfaction of achievement that is invaluable to you. And it also gives credibility to your agency to have a fully certified procurement staff. The other thing that I like to say to young purchasing folk is to get out there and join with your chapter, become active in promoting public procurement, get involved with national as you have, because that's an invaluable group of people that can be of great assistance. And I will say from personal experience that NIGP will be your biggest supporter, and they will always have your back.
So if you could start all over again, would you still choose to work in public procurement? And if so, why or why not?
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want a job where every day is different and every day gives you an opportunity to learn something that you didn't know the day before? Now, what would really be wonderful is if I could start today with the knowledge that I have and the changes in the electronic sphere that we live in. And so, yes, so just where do I sign up?
I'm sure we can find a place for you.
But no, it has been a great ride for me, and I've had a wonderful career. I'm enjoying retirement very, very much, but I will say that I do miss the fun that I had in my job, because it was just a great experience. And I am so very proud of you and of all of my Tennessee folk that have stepped up and charged ahead with education and certification. And so, keep going. And as one of my favorite people, Lou Spangler, who was the executive director way back in the day, he always said, keep the faith.
Well, Jane, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's so good to hear about your career, and I appreciate you sharing some of your legacy with us of your history with public procurement.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it. It's great to see you, Penny.
Thank you, Jane. You too.